Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is going to be a fun episode. I have Chase Christopher and Kevin Passmore of the Mountain Project, and these guys do a phenomenal job with their films, and I'm actually looking at one of their T-shirts right here in my closet. It's got a picture of a sheep with organic, and it's got all the different cuts of meat on it. A pretty light blue T-shirt here, and I encourage you guys to go check out their website. I believe it's themountainproject.com. One of the reasons that we wanted to do this podcast is I just got back from Arctic Red River in the Northwest Territories, and these guys are going to be going here in a couple weeks, and they had some questions to ask, and figuring since I just got off the hunt fresh, I could help them with travel logistics, how some of the arrangements go, how the country is, and what have you. So, guys, I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited for you guys' opportunity to get up there in the Northwest Territories and do some hunting. So let's just dive into it. Hey?
Sounds good. Yeah, good to be here, Jay. Thanks for having us on again. And appreciate you willing to answer our questions, too. It's as you know, it's a big hunt, and we've been planning it for a long time, and just kind of want to see everything go smooth, so the more help we get, the better.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I keep watching Kevin's, I watch Chase's too, but I've seen Kevin's Instagram posts and him hiking and putting his miles and all that. And Kevin, I'm thinking after going on this hunt, the best thing you could do is just throw Brittany and the kids in the backpack, and that's the best way that you can prepare for this hunt.
All right. Yeah, that would do it. That's what it feels like lately when how much I got on my back, but it's going good.
Yeah, right on. Well, guys, what's that, Chase?
Kevin's been working so hard on the physical part of it. That's I'm going to have to try to keep up with him on this hunt.
I'm just tired watching you guys exercise. I can tell you that. But no, if you guys want, if you just want to start just firing off questions, if you want to, start from travel or wherever you want to start, just start asking questions. I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I think travel is a good place to start there. I've got a couple of questions written down, and I'm sure Kevin does too. But I guess one thing is we're kind of both flying from the same spot out of Phoenix, and I don't know if you went through Seattle or where you went through, but how was the whole customs check-in once you got to Canada?
Yeah, so my route of travel was actually from, my wife was actually headed out of the country as well, and we drove to Denver, and from Denver, I actually flew United, actually it was SkyWest United, and I flew from there to Edmonton, and one of the cool things was my wife had actually booked me a first-class ticket, which I thought was going to help in my travel as far as my number of bags. I'm not sure what airline, if you're going through Seattle, I'm not sure if you're going to Alaskan or what you're flying, but definitely make sure you check with your airline provider to find out what their situation is on bags. I actually, on the way up there, got dinged for 3 bags. On the way back, I actually carried my backpack and then had my rifle case or my rifle in a case, so 1 checked bag, and then my Teku bag, my Kuyu Teku bag was my second. But on all of the airlines, so from Denver to Edmonton, then to Norman Wells, I got dinged for extra baggage. So I would recommend, if you can, carry your backpack. Try and get, I think it's 50 pounds and more. They also ding you. So, you might carry your backpack, shrink it down as much as you can from a visual standpoint, pull the straps, and because they will kind of sometimes look at you cross-eyed, and maybe carry your optics, maybe carry some of your heavy stuff so that you don't go over 50 pounds on your bags. To answer your question, when you get to Edmonton, I assume you're flying into Edmonton, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So when you get to Edmonton, you actually walk through kind of a long hallway, and it says something like customs, if you're coming from the U.S., take this, and you go into this building, and you actually, there's a declaration, it's by a computer screen, and you actually insert your passport, and then you kind of answer some questions. It says, do you have, cash on you? Do you have a firearm? Do you have food? There's a, kind of a laundry list of questions, and then you answer all that, and then you push enter, and then you walk up to a teller, and they kind of, size you up, look at your passport, and then if you have a rifle, which you guys will, you're going to have to actually put that through a special screening. There's a room where they'll put you through an X-ray machine, and it all went very smooth. It didn't seem like there was any issues or problems. I had ammo. Now this is interesting. I had ammo in the case, in the rifle case, and they actually kind of gave me a little bit of a hard time about that and said that the ammo actually needs to be separate, which is ironic because when I came back and I checked in Edmonton, they told me to put the ammo all in the rifle case. So I had at the same airport coming and going two different stories. One said, no, you don't want it in the same case as the rifle, and you need to have the bolt out. And then the next guy said, no, you do want to have the ammo in the rifle case. So I would do some checking, maybe online and what have you, because I honestly don't have a correct answer because I got two opposite answers at the same airport. Okay.
Yeah, that's traveling to Alaska. I've got the same experiences. One of them wants the bolt out, the next one wants the ammo in different case, and it seems kind of hit or miss whatever airport you go to.
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you that you do have to have your Customs 4457, your U.S. Customs 4457 form, and that is basically just showing that you are declaring that you have brought the rifle from the U.S. To Canada and back. The interesting thing is when I actually crossed back into the U.S. At the Denver airport, they never checked my 4457. So I was told by everybody that, and of course I have it when I go to Mexico, but they actually never checked it. So, and I think it's individual agents, agent to agent, but I would have your 4457, just simply your name, address, the make, model, serial number of your gun, and, have them initial off on it. But they did not check it on the way back into the U.S.
Okay.
Do you keep that with your rifle, or did you keep that on you?
I actually kept it with me. I wore Kuiu shorts up there, and I tried to be pretty organized. And in my right kind of cargo pocket, I kept a little Ziploc bag, and it actually had my passport, my driver's license, my global entry card, and my 4457's form, which as well, when I crossed into Canada there at Edmonton, at that X-ray machine, they also have you fill out, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a Canadian firearm permit. Basically has your name, address, make, model, and you sign something. And I had that all in one pocket together. So I basically had everything that I would potentially need in one spot.
Okay.
Now, going through customs there at the kiosk, you said they asked if you had food. Did you took some of your own food, correct?
Yeah, I actually took all of my own food, and I answered the question, and I don't know that I answered it completely 100% correct, because the lady was kind of grilling me, said, well, do you have food? And I said, yes, I've brought food from the United States for my backpack hunt. It's all here in this bag. And she kind of unzipped the bag and kind of just looked at it, and then she zipped it back up. She didn't act like anything that I had was any problem. I showed her, the freeze-dried meals. I even had, some salami that I had taken, and actually some cheese, and, all of my daily, my macadamia nuts, all that kind of stuff. And, I showed it to her, and she acted like it I don't know what she was looking for, but it didn't seem like what I had was anything of any interest to her.
Now, would you do that again, or would you recommend shopping in Edmonton, or what would you do there?
Personally, I like having everything done and complete in the daily food bags, all done, all in and done, so I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about getting to Edmonton, and it's, in Canada, and they don't have the same things that I like. And one thing I did find when I got to Arctic Red was, they have a big pantry and a big walk-in deal, and there's tons of, Mountain House and candy bars and all that kind of stuff. But I will tell you that a lot of the Mountain House was not the same Mountain House, and a lot of the guides, and even my guide Al, was commenting like, hey, you get all the good Mountain House. We only get 4 or 5 flavors, and that's all we get. And I said, why? And he says, I don't know. It gets held up at the Canadian border, and they don't let in the chicken fajita bowls and the Italian pepper steak, and the some of the stuff that has a little bit more flavor. They're more like the mac and cheese. They don't even get beef stroganoff. I think they do get lasagna, but okay. So I'm just one of those guys. I want to kind of know what I'm going to eat, as well as like the candy bars and some of the stuff that they had at Arctic Red. And they could have been great, I don't know, but they were like what I would call like off-brand, different stuff that I'd never seen. And I just feel like on a hunt like that, I kind of want to know what I'm getting into. The other thing I will tell you is I watched even the day when I got in, the guides were packing, out of that pantry for their hunters, and I mean, the size of the bag that they were handing their hunters was giant. Like, I would have been like, there's no way I'm taking all that stuff. So, on one hand, they provide it. It's part of the hunt. You're out of more of an expense if you do take your own food. On the other hand, if you pack your own food, you know exactly what you have. And that's not to say that they hand you your food bag and maybe you take, you go through it and take some of the things that you see in there that you like. That's free, part of the hunt that's provided. But I would still, if I went again tomorrow, I would pack all my own food just because I would want to know exactly what I'm taking.
Okay.
Kevin, you got any other questions?
Yeah, real quick, back to customs coming home. How much time, when we talked with Brian, he was talking about allowing time to clear customs coming home. How'd you work that into your schedule?
I got to be honest now. I didn't have a sheep. I didn't have horns, and I didn't have a cape, so I don't know what any extra things that would be involved with that. My interpretation was there was basically no holdup at all, but I will tell you that I was on the 6:10 flight from Edmonton to Denver, 6:10 a.m., so I literally arrived at the airport at 4:45 in the morning, and one thing I will tell you is my impression was that airport is a very busy airport, but most of the times when I was there were pretty dang early in the morning. When I flew out to Norman Wells on the way out, coming on the trip, I believe I got in around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Didn't seem extremely busy. I went through that whole process. I checked into the Renaissance Hotel, which is actually right at the airport, which I loved because I literally walked from the gate right to the hotel. It's maybe 100 yards worth of walking right to the hotel. And then the next morning I want to say it was like a 7 o'clock flight from Edmonton to Yellowknife and then into Norman Wells. And I got there, I want to say at like 5 o'clock in the morning. But granted, I was literally just walking, 100 yards from my hotel. You never even go outside. So, if you're not staying at the Edmonton airport, I would give yourself plenty of time. Now, Kevin, to answer your question a little more in depth, when I came home, the charter flight that you take, it's Northright Air from Norman Wells to base camp. They arrived, the next group of 5 hunters arrived it was an 8:30 flight, and they arrived at 9:30 because it's a 1-hour flight from Norman Wells to base camp. And then we got on that flight at 9:30. Well, we were back in Norman Wells at 10:30. Well, every day there's a 3:30 flight from Norman Wells to Edmonton. Looking back, I would have loved to have been on that same day flight, so I wouldn't had to have paid for the hotel in Norman Wells, because we got in at 10:30, and I basically, twiddled my thumbs all that afternoon, that night, and then the flight out isn't until 3:30 the next day. So the only downside I could see with that, guys, is if you potentially, let's say the charter comes in at 9:30, you get out at 10:30, and for whatever reason there's weather or what have you, and you miss that day's 3:30 flight, you would have to go the following day. So in an effort to make sure that everything was great, I actually had a stay over in Norman Wells, then I had a stay over in Edmonton. If I had to do it all over again, I might do several things. I might just not even buy a return ticket, get on that charter flight, which they typically try and do at, 8:30 in the morning when, it's good flying conditions. You would get into Norman Wells at 9:30, or excuse me, you'd get on the plane at 9:30 because they would just be coming in. You would get in at 10:30, and I would immediately go to the airport and try and get on that 3:30 flight to Edmonton, and then potentially just stay one night in Edmonton and then back to Seattle and then to Phoenix. But I'm not sure how you guys are playing that, but I felt like on the return trip, I could have easily got on that flight to Edmonton and saved myself basically 24 hours.
Right.
Did you try to get on it at all? Will they allow you to get on it? I did. Do you know?
Yeah, I tried. My wife actually called, and they said it. So it was, I want to say my flight from Norman Wells to Edmonton was like $595, and they said, yeah, you can get on it, but it's $595. So in other words, there wasn't like a $10 or $50 change fee. It was basically, there's a change fee, but you pay the full price. So, I mean, I would probably, if I had to do it again, I would probably just book the same day out at 3:30 and try and skip the Norman Wells, stay over. But you guys have probably already booked your flights, so I don't know. Do you know what your schedule is already?
Yeah, I mean, everything's booked. I don't know time-wise. I know we're allowing, we have rooms for, the 2 nights going and the 2 nighghts coming back, just in case there's any hiccups or anything like that. But
so I mean, that's the same thing. Yeah, and honestly, I mean, you guys will have video footage. You guys will probably, have a lot of stuff that you could do. I felt like, dang, let's just get, I didn't have a RAM. I was like, let's just get going. Let's get home. But, it didn't work out that way. Now, I would ask you, do you know if you're staying at the Heritage Inn in Norman Wells? Is that the hotel that you're staying at? Do you know?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so let me go over that. Okay, let me back up. In Edmonton, are you staying at the Renaissance right at the airport, or are you staying at the Nisku, or do you know?
The Nisku. We just went off of Brian and Tavis, the recommendations, and just went ahead and booked the rooms for both of those.
Okay, yeah. And so the Nisku, from what I understand, so when you land in Edmonton, from what I understand, the Nisku You can get a NISCU shuttle right there at the airport, and it's not very far away. One of the things that I think is good about the NISCU is, from what I understand, they have like a sports bar restaurant right downstairs. Some of the other hunters were staying there, as well as they have kind of a walk-in freezer, from what I understand, that they will allow you to put, stuff overnight. So when you come back, if you had, capes, or if you had horns or whatever that you wanted to freeze, from what I understood, they were pretty understanding and dialed in on that aspect. When you get to Norman Wells, there's the Heritage Inn, and this is one thing on our trip out that I'll tell you about the Heritage. So we get in from, let's see, we left Edmonton, we flew to Yellowknife, which just roughly, I'm going to tell you, is like an hour and a half flight, okay? And you get off and deplane in Yellowknife, okay? You deplane, and you can stand out there in the airport of Yellowknife. There's like a little waiting area. You can stand there for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you get back on. What? Same plane. You just have to deplane. Yeah. Okay. Actually, let me correct that. You don't have to deplane. You can sit in your seat. I want to say total time was probably 30 minutes. I felt like I just wanted to get off, stretch my legs. I walked inside. So did most everybody else. You get back on the same plane, and then it's only about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes then to Norman Wells. So when you get in Norman Wells, I want to say it was like noon, okay? So we got into Norman Wells, and it was noon, and right there where you get off the plane, so you literally walk down a plank, and you walk outside, and then you walk into the terminal, all of your baggage is right there. Then there'll be someone from Northright Air that will actually shuttle you to the Heritage Inn. Now, if the weather is good, they are going to, Northright Air is going to try and take you immediately. Well, what they did with us is they took us immediately to, Arctic Red. We were the first hunt, though. The way it worked on the second group that came in is they had a set schedule of 8:30 that morning. So those hunters, I talked to them, they actually came in and stayed at the Heritage Inn, and then they got on the plane at 8:30 and arrived at base camp at 9:30, which is the plane we got on. So I guess what I'm saying is, when we landed and we went to the Heritage, they wanted us to get into our full camo, take our guns out of our case and leave the cases and stuff at the Heritage. They have a little storage room there, and they wanted us to go immediately to Northright and get right on the plane. My bet is you will be more like the second group, because, we were obviously the first group and there was no one in front of us. I imagine you guys will be on that 8:30 Northright Air into Arctic Red River. Is that on your itinerary, or do you know if that's the case?
I believe Tavis booked that one, and I think that is the case early the next morning.
Okay, so at the Heritage Inn, there is a restaurant, and we ate there several times, and it's actually pretty darn good food, and the rooms are nice. And there is the owner's actually a really good guy, and he will, if you need him to, he can shuttle you. If for whatever reason the shuttle was running late, he was actually Johnny on the spot and had a nice pickup truck that he ran a few guys to the airport and what have you. What I will tell you is, make sure when you get in, that you check the restaurant hours, and make sure you're not late for that. Because what happened to us is, when we got in, they said, "Hey, weather's good. We want to get you right to base camp." Well, my wife had already actually canceled my Heritage Inn. There was some other guys that, fortunately, they let them cancel their reservation. But I could see them how, you show up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and they're like, "You can't cancel today." So, but I'm assuming that you guys will go out the next morning, so you're going to have that Heritage in. With that being said, I think it's actually good because it gives you a little bit of time to kind of go through your last checklist, prepare, and kind of be ready that next morning to roll. Just so you know, when you get on that North Right flight at 8:30, you need to leave the Heritage Hotel with your gun in hand, your backpack on, and camo ready to go. And so when you arrive at Arctic Red, you are basically ready to fly out, because if the weather's good, they will immediately try and turn you around and get you out in the field.
Okay. Now, the flights from Edmonton to Norman Wells, did they ding you for overpriced baggage on that too?
Yes. So, and that's something, you got to keep it under 50 pounds, and that's where, 3 bags, I want to say going up, I got dinged, it was like $150 going up, and then the flight from Edmonton to Norman Wells, I want to say it was another, I don't know why it was this, but I think it was $141, because at that point I had 3 bags, so I don't know if that was, $35 a bag or what it was, and then tax or what, but it seemed like it was $150 and then $141. So, I had almost $300 just going up there in extra bag fees.
Oh, wow.
I think you can go on the website and figure out, the different airlines, and what their policies. I want to say it was Canadian North is who we flew from Edmonton to Norman Wells. And you can kind of get dialed in on what those extra bag fees will be.
Okay. How were the flights? Pretty decent?
Yeah, actually, the flights from Edmonton to Norman Wells, you stop in Yellowknife. The nice thing about stopping is, as much as you just like to blow and go and get there, when you're on an hour and a half flight, by the time you reach elevation, and it seems like it goes by fast, and then the leg from Yellowknife to Norman Wells went really fast. It's only, I would say, about an hour flight, and that was one thing that I thought, man, I'm way up here, but it seems like it went fast as far as once you're in the air. The other cool thing is the whole flight was basically sheep hunters going to Arctic Red, going to, Nahanni Butte, going to all the different, canola, going to all the different outfitters. And so I saw, a handful of people I knew, met some new guys, and so it was pretty fun to see everybody in the airport and chat, kind of chatted up. I was sitting next to sheep hunters the whole way.
Right, for sure.
Kevin, you got any more travel questions, or do you want to get on in?
No, like me and Chase have been talking, it's really hard to write it out and lay it out because there's so many flights and times and hotels, so it's, that helps out a lot, so I'm good to go now.
Well, I feel like with, you guys will be staying at the NISCU, so you'll be flying in, I assume, kind of afternoon. You'll go and stay at the NISCU, you'll get something to eat, and then, it'd probably be on that 7 o'clock or so flight, Canadian North flight to Yellowknife and then to Norman Wells. Then you'll be staying again at the Heritage. And the Heritage, just so you know, in Norman Wells is, maybe a mile from the airport. And everything's, pretty streamlined with the shuttle system and what have you. And they even have taxi cabs, shuttles, and if you stay at the Heritage Inn, the taxi cab is free because the Heritage Inn owner just says charge it to the Heritage. He really tries to be user friendly for hunters, and I felt like in Canada it just seemed a lot more of the norm, to see rifle cases and guys with sheep horns and what have you. So it definitely didn't seem like some of the airports you'd be in the U.S. where people would be looking at you cross-eyed.
Guys, I've got an awesome opportunity to tell you about. You can check out the Go Hunt Insider for free for a 30-day free trial right now. All you got to do is go to GoHunt, that's GoHunt.com/JScott. Look for the blue Start Your Free 30-Day Trial button and click there. This is by far the most valuable tool a Western hunter could give themselves. Insider changes how hunts and hunting information are found. When you go in the Insider, you'll be able to check out the Filtering 2.0 system. You'll also be able to check out the draw odds for each unit, for each animal, for each state. Go Hunt Insider has the best draw odds on the market as far as the most accurate. There's no one that gets as meticulous level of accuracy as Go Hunt Insider. You'll see there's complete coverage of 4,200 different profiles, every unit, every state, every species, every season. In-depth analysis, interactive maps, season trends, unit access, camping and lodging nearby, and historical weather. You'll also be able to see some of the additional benefits, the strategy articles on how to apply, let's say in Arizona for elk, for antelope, for deer. You can go in there and see how in-depth they get. It's an unbelievable opportunity, a free 30-day trial. They also do monthly giveaways, so just by being an Insider member, you get monthly giveaways. They give over $100,000 plus per year of giveaways, gear, tags, hunts. Another unbelievable thing about the Insider is the Go Hunt Gear Shop. So every time you buy something, you accumulate points. In essence, it's giving money back to the Insider. You might ask, well, how does this work with the Go Hunt Insider? How does the 30-day free trial work? You can sign up to try Insider's industry-leading hunting products free for 30 days. They do take your credit card information so that you can automatically become a member once your 30-day trial ends. You can cancel at any time during the 30-day free trial, and it doesn't cost you a dime. You might ask, how is this different from other resources out there? Insider provides analysis and tools for every unit, every species, and every hunt. In each state that they cover, they don't just cover the top 10 units. Their coverage is super in-depth, and you can find those hidden gem units, maybe something that the draw odds are a little bit better, and maybe some quality. It's slipped through the cracks, and you might find a great hunt there. Right now, Go Hunt Insider covers Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, and Wyoming. All you have to do is go to gohunt.com/JScott and check it out now.
Yeah. So you get from Norman Wells, now you fly into Arctic Red. First impression on base camp and getting to the outfitter itself. How was that?
Yeah, so the flight on Northright is overhead wing. I want to say it's like a Turbine Otter or something like that. It's a wheeled plane, so it's not a float plane. That flight takes about an hour, and literally you have your gun in hand, you have your backpack, as well as I took a little small Kuyu Teku bag, and in that Teku bag I had, a change of clothes, my tennis shoes. So when I got done with my hunt, I would have something to change into. And that is something I would recommend to you guys to have, your backpack, your camo, and your gun and be ready, but also have some sort of little bag with, maybe a toothbrush, deodorant, maybe that kind of, some small little toiletry stuff, and then, a change of clothes of some sort. So when you get back off the hunt, you can shower there and, have a change of clothes. My impression was the flight is awesome. It's about an hour. You fly right over the McKenzie River. It's big and wide. It's like a mile wide there. You're flying. It's kind of an old-style plane. It's a prop plane. Now, keep in mind, when you get on that plane, there'll probably be, five or six of you. They will also be bringing Tavis supplies of fuel. They brought wood. They were building a cabin. So it's kind of crazy because you're on that plane and you're sitting next to 50-gallon drums of airplane fuel. You're like, oh, this is obviously a little interesting. But you're looking out the window. You're fired up. You land on the grass strip. The guys from Arctic Red will be there with a Polaris Ranger to throw all your gear in, and then it's a short walk, maybe a 3 to 5 minute walk up to the cookhouse and the cabins, and they'll at that point, depending on weather, and you'll probably know just by looking at the weather if it's bad weather and they're probably, we're probably not going till tomorrow. If it's sunny and fairly, calm, you pretty much know that you're going to be, they're probably going to be escorting you straight out into the field. They will, when you walk up to the cookhouse and stuff, you'll meet Amanda, the cook, and then they'll show you to your room, and you guys can stash that, small little bag. In my case, it was a Kuyu Teku bag with my, change of clothes, and that's kind of where you will stay when you come back from your hunt. If you killed on the 4th day or whatever, even if it went till the end, most of the time you'll be flying in from the Super Cub, then you'll get to shower there, and then you'll stay the night, and then you'll be flying out that next morning. So make sure you have a change of clothes. They've got bunk beds in most of the cabins, and
what about
primitive. Go ahead.
You said you took your own food. What about that second drop? Did you have a little bag stashed for that?
Yeah, I was going to tell you that I actually I packed 6 days worth of food. So I had 6 Mountain House, breakfast and dinners, and I had 6 daily bags with all my goodies for my daily bags. But I also had a second food drop. I used a Kuyu meat bag because I figured it was perfect because I could use the meat bag when I shot my sheep. And so I had my 5 daily food bags for my second food drop, and I had basically my 10 Mountain Houses in another bag, and they did a 5-day food drop. So, I had more than I needed with the 6 meals and the 5, but, having an extra Mountain House or 2 is not a bad thing as well. For whatever reason, if you got stuck at the airstrip and it was, bad weather for a couple days and they couldn't come get you, I had plenty of food.
Okay. So you're talking about
on that food drop, sorry to interrupt, but on that food drop, I actually wrote my name on my Kuyu meat bag with all my Mountain House and all my stuff in it, and I actually showed the cook, Amanda, and I actually told Tavis, on my bed, sitting on my bed, is my 5-day food drop bag. Can you, and I had it, my name on it where it was real clear, sitting right on my bed, so that everybody was clear that that was what I wanted dropped to me on the 5th day.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. So you were talking about the cabins.
Let me say the cabins. So there's 3 or 4 bunk beds in each cabin, and now keep in mind, I don't know what the lighting situation is going to be like on your hunt, but on my hunt it was never dark. So I went 10 days and it was never dark. It was the first night I got back to Edmonton was wild, to look outside and actually see dark, at 11 o'clock at night it was dark, what it should be. When you sleep in those cabins, it's not a bad idea to have in your extra clothes bag, have an extra T-shirt or something to just kind of put over your face, because literally it was about as bright as it is at 5 p.m. It'd be and the curtains, where I'm going with this is sometimes the curtains, the curtain rods broke. It's just, there's a lot of light. So, you're going to want to put something over your eyes so you can go to sleep either on your arrival night or on your departure night.
Okay.
So you left out that afternoon on Super Cub with Tavis?
Yeah, so when we got in, it was, by the time we got in, it was, we left about 3:30 from Norman Wells. We got in at 4:30. We actually went to the cookhouse, and Amanda actually had a kind of a late lunch dinner going. we all got a chance to fill our bellies before we were flying out. Now, they'll be saying, okay, you guys are going here, you're second out. Okay, you guys are going here, you're fifth out. Okay, you're first out. I assume you guys are going together. So whatever order, I assume they have 5 or 6 hunters on the hunt you're going on. You'll either be first or fifth or third, whatever number you are. So you kind of have to juggle, how much time do I have to eat here at the cookhouse? Do I need to, is there anything I need to do in my room? That's why you kind of need to be ready to go when you leave the Heritage Hotel, pretty much in your camos, your gaiters, everything, everything on and ready to roll, so that when you get there, if you get a chance to eat, great, and if they say you're first out, literally, you eat in 5 minutes and you're off and running. In my case, I think I was fourth out, so I didn't get to the airstrip where I met my guide until I think it was like 9 p.m. But lighting wise, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, the sun was still up. It was crazy. And from there, Al had his tent already set up, and he said, we're just going to stay here tonight. We're going to wake up in the morning, and then we're going to roll.
So what were your first thoughts when you flew out there and drops you off and that plane leaves? How's that feeling?
Yeah, it's definitely a surreal feeling for sure. I would say, to go back to your question that you asked, when you flew in on the Northlight plane, what were your thoughts? It's an incredible flight in, but even more incredible is then when you get on the Super Cub, because now you're actually, you're kind of skirting the mountains when you come in from Norman Wells and you land at Arctic Red, and it's awesome. But then when you take off in the Super Cub, I was only about a 25 or 30-minute flight out, and it was incredible. It was one of my favorite parts of the hunt, coming and going when he when he took me out and when he brought me back. It's awesome. I mean, because I'd only flown in one other Super Cub, but not in terrain like that. And you're literally seeing sheep, out the window. It's an awesome experience in its own right, for sure. It's incredible. You're pumped just to be there, and you're just fired up.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then once you land, is it 6 or 12 hours you got to wait till your hunt officially starts?
I think it's 12 hours. Don't quote me on that, but it's I think it's 12 hours. Now, the reason I'm not exact on that, I think it's 12, about 98% sure it's 12, is when we got in, we actually, the next day was still not even the season. So we were scheduled to get in that next day, but since the weather was good, they got us out. I think it was the 13th, but our season, we had one full day before our season actually started. Obviously, when you guys get there, the season will be running. I believe it's 12 hours from the time you land and get out of the Super Cub before you can hunt. Now that doesn't mean you can't hike and go from point A to point B. It just I'm pretty sure it just means you can't pull the trigger on anything.
Yeah, right? You're basically scouting at that point.
Yeah. Guys, just so I don't forget this, there is one thing that I, just off the top of my head, that I just thought of that I would probably take if I were going again tomorrow. And it sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know what you're taking as far as socks. And I don't know if you guys are still planning on taking, 110 or 2 or however you're doing that. But if I were going again, I would pack the extra weight of a little Ziploc laundry detergent bag, just like a little bit of powder or whatever you're going to call it, laundry detergent. Doesn't weigh hardly anything. And my reason for this is I had 3 pairs of socks, and I kept rotating my socks. But I would have loved to have just a little bit of powdered laundry detergent that I could put my socks in a Ziploc bag, put a little bit of detergent in there, put a little bit of water, zip it up, and, let it sit in there with the soap, okay? And then wash it out in the creek, because most of the time I had 2 pairs of socks that I would be hanging to dry, but I would wash them in the creek, but I felt like if I had just a little bit of detergent, I know this is kind of tansy, thinking, but I'm just telling you, it'd be nice to have a fresh pair of socks that's, have a real, smell good. Because you get to rotating.
Fresh socks.
Yeah,
awesome.
And even if you had to wash your shirt or just a little bit, I'm not talking about a lot, but just a little bit, even if it's a tablespoon in a bag that you can get a little bit of suds and kind of be rotating either a shirt or rotating your socks could go a long way. And you guys could share, a bag and maybe have, 10 teaspoons in it, would weigh nothing, and, but potentially just get a little bit fresher, cleaner system going.
Right. Gotcha. Now, did you, I listened to your podcast, or maybe it was on Instagram, you'd mentioned the first creek crossing, your boots had gotten wet.
Okay, yeah.
Were you able to get those dry by hanging your socks and different things?
Okay, so, on several of the podcasts, I was kind of not freaked out, but I've crossed a lot of creeks, because I fish all the time, but I'd never crossed in boots with rain pants and with the gaiters and what have you, so I didn't have a sense of, like, how deep is too deep, how far is too far, like, when are you going to get wet? That first morning, so, the first morning we're hiking, full packed, and we get to the first creek crossing. We'd kind of been following up, and so, guys, it would be like walking across a two-lane street where you've got one, line of traffic going one way. So I'm going to say, what is that? 10 yards across. Pretty good little creek, but it was only probably between mid-shin and mid-knee. And Al was like, I think we can put our rain pants, I think we can cross with the gaiters. So, me, I pull out my little Velcro, and he's just looking at me like, who is this guy? I've got my Kuyu boots on, I've got my my Tiburon pants, I've got my rain pants, and then my gaiters over the top of that. And then to make it even more, quote-unquote, watertight, I took the Velcro and put it around my boot. So, in other words, below the top of the boot, I cinched this Velcro strap, which I got these cheap Velcro straps, and they worked. In theory, they worked phenomenal. And I cinched that sucker down, and then I cinched another one down up by my knee. Well, Al goes across, and he's wearing 10-inch boots, so he's wearing mid-shin boots, where mine, the Kuyu boots aren't very high. Well, and the other thing is he kind of pranced across, but he's carrying his full pack. I'm like, I don't want to bust my butt, so I go, hey, did you get wet? He goes, nah, not too bad. That's the first key right there when a veteran says not too bad. Just go ahead and go down to your Crocs. So here I go. I'm like, okay, here goes. And I got halfway across, and full on water, like the feeling of not just like, ooh, that feels wet, like, full soak. And obviously I was going too slow, being too careful, trying to cross, but we're talking, maybe 25 steps across, way too many to cross. I should have gone down to my wading shoes. And so I got across, and I literally had to stop and pour the water out of my boots. So here I am, first day. My boots, are completely soaked. I'm thinking, well, it's not going to do me any good to change my socks, because as soon as I put a dry sock in this wet boot, it's, going to be soaked. So believe it or not, I walked, the 8.5 or whatever miles that day in 100% wet socks, wet boots. And as you can probably imagine, in the back of my mind, the whole time I'm thinking, this is not what I need to be doing on the first day of my hunt. I'm going to get blisters out the wazoo.
Right.
When we got to where we were going to camp, by the time we got there, on the bottom of my feet, so on my heel, not the back of my heel, but the pad of my heel, the bottom part, I could feel blisters coming on both of my feet. So I said, time out. I said, I got to stop here. I pulled off my socks, and it was, that day happened to be a hot, sunny day. So my boots weren't just scorching wet at that point. They had already started to dry. But I got out, dried my feet, and did the 3 layers of Leukotape on my heels. So I basically started, up by my ankle bone and went down and, kind of a horseshoe shape. And that Leukotape stayed on for the entire hunt, and I never felt those blisters anymore. I can't say enough about Leukotape. I've used it on that goat hunt last year. And I also did my big toes, because on the inside of my big toe, when you're side hilling and stuff, I mean, I even have calluses. I had calluses before I went, but they'll get pretty tender. So if I had to do it again tomorrow, I would go ahead and pre-Leukotape my big toes, just because of that side hilling on that, the inside of your big toes. I would go ahead and just pre-do, Leukotape. So that was my creek crossing. I would tell you that if you can't, in like 3 or 4 steps, get across, I would take the time, roll your pants up, and go in your Crocs. I actually took Teva. It's the same shoes that I wear, floating in my drift boat every day. They're just a skosh heavier, but I'm just comfortable with them, and I'm used to crossing creeks. I feel like Crocs, almost want to float a little bit, and so I felt more comfortable with the Tevas. And, you're going to go through a lot of creeks where, it's one step, you take one step and it's maybe mid shin, and then you're quickly out of it, and you're not going to get wet that way. But I mean, if you have to take more than, 6 or 8 steps where you're all in, I would definitely recommend stripping down. Now, I did buy those Wiggy waders, and I took them to camp, and several of the guys were like, you don't need those, don't take those. So I didn't. I left them at base camp, and I would have used them in that first creek crossing situation, but I can honestly say there was only one other situation where I would have used those. So I think it's just as easy to not take those and just take water shoes.
Okay.
What you got, Kevin?
Well, your food, the food that you took and everything, were you happy with everything you took, with the way it worked out? And did you feel full and energy levels and all that stuff that worked out good for you?
Yeah. I think what I would do a little bit differently, if you start from the beginning, start with breakfast. I like the Mountain House skillet. I really like it, but I would tell you day after day after day, you get to where you don't like it. So I would mix it up with a Mountain House skillet. Maybe the next morning I'd have oatmeal and kind of rotate it. I also had that breakfast hash, but it's pretty similar to the breakfast skillet. So, even though I like the taste of the skillet, every day, it got a little old. I did have some oatmeal, and I didn't have enough to do it every other day, but the way I would do it if I was going tomorrow is I would rotate every other day. I'd do oatmeal one morning, breakfast skillet the next morning. That's one thing. And then on my daily food bag, I think you probably saw on my Instagram or heard on the podcast, I like macadamia nuts and I like almonds, but what I found was I just had that in my nut bag, and I just got to where I didn't even want to eat it. So I'm really not a big candy guy or whatever, but I think, taking Brian's advice and doing like peanut M&Ms or doing something, raisins or something to kind of add to that. Someone was saying last night on, to mix in some dried mangoes or dried fruit. I think that I made the mistake of just having nuts, and I got to where several days I didn't even eat them because it didn't look good. The other thing was that organic, whatever it is, organic honey stinger waffle thing. After a couple days, I didn't even eat those. They just did not taste good out there for me. They taste like I like them and I eat them periodically throughout the year, but just day after day, I didn't even eat those. I did like the energy chews, the honey stinger energy chews. You've probably seen those, but I would stagger your flavors like pink lemonade, strawberry, orange. I'd have a different flavor every day. I kind of like those energy chews on my hikes. I would just, 4 or 5 hour hike, maybe I'd eat 5 or 6 of those on the way up, and it just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just was, tasted good, and I don't know that it gives you any more energy, but I would go and take those again in a heartbeat. I also did something that I thought I really liked, and that's those mini thin bagels, or those bagel thins or whatever. They're like the half bagels. Have you seen those?
Yep.
And I took, I think it's Nature Nate's or something, honey. And so one bagel I would squirt the honey on it, and I loved that. I looked forward to, and I loved that. And the other thing I took, Brendan Burns recommended, was do dry salami and cheese. And so on the other bagel thin, so every day in my daily food bag, I've had 2 of those bagel thins. One whole bagel thin would go with the honey, and the other one I would actually make a little sandwich with salami and with cheese. I didn't do any mustard. I'm not a big mustard or mayo fan, so I just ate them dry. And I can tell you, those 2 things, like eating feeling like you're eating a sandwich, that was money. Now I did Gouda cheese, because I was told that, it can be out for days on end and it doesn't get bad. I would probably just go with straight salami and maybe no cheese at all on that deal. The other reason is my wife says I'm lactose intolerant, and I eat cheese and milk, and it screws up my system. I like cheese. That's the problem. Is I actually liked that Gouda cheese, but I think it messed with my stomach a little bit.
Gotcha.
Guys, I want to thank KUIU.com, that's KUIU.com, for their sponsorship of this podcast. And KUIU Ultralight Hunting makes the best ultralight hunting products on the market today. From items like the Peloton 240 full zip hoodie, the Chugach NX rain jacket, and the Super Down Ultra jacket, which will be going on my hunts to the Northwest Territories here soon. If you're talking about KUIU pants, some of the pants that I like are the Guide pant. That's for colder weather hunts, like down in January on my Coues deer hunts. You've got the Tiburon pant for the warm season hunts. That's got the air dock technology where it breathes really well. You've got the Attack pant, which is probably their #1 selling pant. You've got their new Pro pant, which is their all-season, all-terrain hunting pant with a new quiet ultra suede foam lined knee pad. It has 4-way stretch. It only weighs 19.6 ounces. It's got the Toray DWR water repellency. It's got the Toray Make Spec for odor control. KUIU's rain gear is the best on the market in my opinion. I routinely wear the Chugach NX rain pant and rain jacket. I also have worn on some of the lower 48 hunts the Ultra NX rain pant and jacket. Some of the other pieces you've got to check out are the Peloton, which is their synthetic version, either the 130 zip-off bottoms or the 200 zip-off bottoms. They also make them in a 145 merino wool or a 210 zip-off bottom merino wool. These are so convenient. You can leave your boots on, you just drop your pants, unzip your long underwear, and you're off and running again. Another amazing product are the Tiburon shorts. If you see any of the pictures of me in the summer on my Instagram account, 99.9% of the summer I'm wearing Tiburon shorts on all my hiking, all my fishing excursions. It's got the air dot technology. They breathe really well. They're very well fitted, and you guys should check them out. The Tiburon short, fantastic product from KUIU Ultralight Hunting. KUIU has an amazing selection of products, from jackets and vests, pants and shorts, shirts and tops, footwear, accessories, lifestyle apparel. They have a wide range of packs, from the Icon Pro to the Ultra, the sleep system, the KUIU sleeping bag I use on all my hunts, and then the tents, the Mountain Star 2-person tent, the Storm Star tent, just phenomenal gear. Make sure to go to KUIU, that's KUIU.com, and check out all of the phenomenal gear that they provide.
And then I did the little snack size, like Halloween size Almond Joy, just the little one. I got to where that was like the highlight of my day, eating that little thing. So looking back, I might actually put 2 of those in my deal. And then at night, I would eat a Mountain House meal. I really like the lasagna. I like the chicken fajita bowl. I like the chicken and mashed potatoes. I don't necessarily like the chicken that much, but I know it was, good protein for me. But I really like the taste of the mashed potatoes. And then there's Italian pepper steak, I think is what it's, and I liked it as well. I might mix in like a beef stroganoff. What I would tell you is I took too many chicken fajita bowls. I took too many lasagnas. Like I would probably do a different meal every night. So it's just a different one. So it's total, mixing it up.
Gotcha. Did you take like a cup, or what did you take to boil your water?
So I didn't take a stove. Drink coffee. So I didn't take a stove, and I was told that my guide will have the jet boil and that I didn't need to take any of my own stove or cup or anything like that. So every morning and every night he actually would boil water for himself for coffee in his mountain house. And then I would, when I would get up, I'd be getting up in the morning, I would already have my breakfast set out, and I would walk over to his tent and open it up and, basically set it there. So all he had to do was just pour it in there. And a lot of times I poured my own, but basically I was kind of organized. And same thing with dinner. We'd get back from hiking. I'd get my dinner out. I'd take it over. And I didn't take a stove myself. And I don't drink coffee, like I said, so it was, pretty easy for me.
How about
one recommendation Brendan gave me was to get a long spoon, and that was awesome. I got a long spoon, and so when you're digging in your mountain house, my fingers never got, lasagna on them, and the long spoon was money. That was a good tip.
Cool.
Okay. Did you guys ever have a campfire and dry stuff out and save your jet boil fuel or anything like that and just use the fire?
No, that was one thing. If you remember, I interviewed several people, and they're like, oh, yeah, we had a fire every night. We didn't have a fire one night, nor anywhere where we were camped, it wasn't even an option. And that was one thing we can get into when we talk about, some other stuff, but we didn't do like the traditional walk up the valley bottoms and where there's driftwood, and most of those valleys, there's all kinds of wood. We were like up at the head of a canyon and like, in green grass, and there was no wood anywhere to be found. So, and when I arrived at camp, and I had been told this, Al handed me, it felt like 50 pounds, but it was probably like 2.5 pounds of salt and an MSR, I guess it would be propane or whatever type of gas, the red bottle, and that was in a bag, and it literally, it was probably 3 pounds, maybe 4, I don't know, but it felt like 50. Like when he handed it to me, I was like, it was almost like I knew it was coming, but the weight of it was like, holy smokes. But just be prepared for that. You're going to be carrying your own salt, and you'll be carrying extra fuel canisters.
Okay.
But back to that, I don't know how you're set up if you guys are going together with one guide or what you're doing, but all of the guides have their own stoves, and I would consider not even taking your stove, to be honest with you.
Okay.
What is your pack weigh total with your rifle and all?
So I was 49. I believe I was 49 pounds with 6 days of food. And then my rifle was 8.5, so I was like at 57.5 pounds, I think, all in, said and done.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Did, let's see here. You were on a 10-day hunt, right?
Yeah, I was on a 10-day. What are you guys on?
15.
15. So I don't know if you get a 5-day food drop or if you get a 7.5-day food drop. So that would be a question I would ask Tavis. I don't know the answer to that question. So you need to plan your food accordingly. Now, when I got there, Tavis was like, "Oh no, you need to have all 10 days with you." And I'm like, "Well, Tavis, like everybody I talked to said there's a 5-day food drop." And he says, "Well, there is if the weather's good." I said, "Well, should I go back up to camp and grab my other bag?" And he's like, "No, we'll get it to you." So there was a little bit of incongruent, like what I was told and what. So, you might clear that with Tavis before you go to say, hey, if it's a 15-day, like, should we carry a week's worth of food and we'll get another 7 days, a 7-day food drop?
Right. And I think everything we've heard is like it's split in half, so it's either 7 or 8, and then we were going to do just like one more day on top of that. For backup as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you? I remember something we were listening to. Did you end up taking any gun oil or anything to, like, with the moisture in your rifle, or protect your rifle any way from the moisture?
Yeah, Dar gave these little Remington wipes or something. Let me see if I can find them. They're right here. Remington oil wipes, Teflon lubricant. I never used them. The gun, I haven't looked at the gun. It's probably a frickin' rust bucket, but I never used them. And to be honest with you, we got a little bit of rain during the day, but not tons. We got tons of rain at night, and my rifle was always under the vestibule. Obviously, it still gets tons of moisture, not getting water directly on it, so I don't want to. But it wasn't like I was walking in the rain tons. I did electrical tape over the top of my barrel, and I never loaded a shell into my action. So, I mean, the action that I know of was never even open. Obviously, moisture can still get in there, so I don't want people, he said you couldn't get moisture in your gun. I'm just saying I didn't wipe it down, but I had them with me, and I never used them. Okay. Hopefully Dar doesn't listen to this podcast because I was using his gun.
So water, Jay, you guys were in the bottoms and up top. What did you carry for water storage? Did you have a bladder or an Nalgene bottle? Or
so I brought a 3-liter platypus, but I will tell you that all I did was take my, I think it's a 32-ounce Nalgene, whatever the standard Nalgene is. And in the mornings, we would always camp where there was a creek. So most of the time at the heads of a canyon, but anywhere there was a creek. So in the morning, I'd have my breakfast, and I'd try and drink as much water right there at the creek as I could, and then I would fill my 32-ounce or, my Nalgene full, and then that would be my water for the day. Now, between the time I left the tent and the time, if I ever crossed paths with a creek or any little, seep of water, I would always fill up when I could. And it seemed to be ample enough water. Obviously, I probably could have drank more, but I never filled my, to answer your question, like when I would go, you'd hike for 3 or 4 hours straight up to the top, up on a ridge or up in a saddle or up on the mountain pass. I never took the platypus with me full as well. I would just drink my Nalgene.
And you always felt like you had plenty of water on top and everything?
Yeah. Well, there is basically on top, there's virtually no water. The only thing I would tell you is there was a lot of snowbanks, and in the back of my mind I was thinking, man, since I don't drink coffee, we could actually camp up on top. Couldn't we melt that snow and, boil that snow? That's how I was thinking. I was thinking instead of, because what you do is you camp in these bottoms, and then you have a lot of times, minimum a 2-hour to, 5-hour hike to the top every single morning. So sometimes I was like, man, it'd be cool if we could just, suck it up and pack our camp up top, but then, first thing in the morning, we'd be up on top of the ridge line.
Gotcha.
Did you drink any recoveries at night or during the day, Jay?
I didn't. My wife had actually gave me some electrolyte packets, and I did a couple nights drink that. That's one thing that I would probably look into if, when I'm going on this Alaska hunt. I'm probably going to take some sort of something to give that water flavor. It's incredible tasting water, but you kind of get to where you almost crave just something different, and that's where I think if you could mix it up between drinking water and drinking some sort of, flavoring of, either electrolyte or, hydrate and recover or, something like that, I think it would be better.
Okay.
Now, were you carrying your camp most of the time, or did you have, like, little hikes you'd make without everything?
Yeah, I want to say that we carried our camps, we changed camps 7 times. So that was the thing, we covered over 65 miles, but most of that was with our full camp, the full 57 pounds or whatever on our back. And that definitely took its toll on me. This was, now keep in mind, I've had people say, oh, you have Northwest Territories and you have the Chugach. They're like, oh, the Northwest Territories will just be a nice, what's the word? What am I looking for? It'll be a nice, like, refresher, or it'll kind of break you in. Nothing's
just
like
a
the
warm-up?
Chugach. It's a warm-up. That's what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. The Chugach is so rough, and, like, I'm doing this hunt, I'm going, holy smokes, I'm going to die in the Chugach. I might as well just tell my wife, just send, if I make it out of the Chugach, I'll be, because this was the most physical hunt I've ever been on, hands down, period, end of discussion for me. That's not to say, the Chugach, I'm going to get off that and be like, oh, frick, it was, way worse than the NWT. But, one of the other things about the hunt is we weren't seeing a lot of sheep. And my guide has been on 140 sheep harvests. We were looking for, obviously, number 141, and he's killed 22 Dall sheep himself, 3 stone sheep. I mean, he's a complete animal. Al Clausen, he's a legend. And honestly, he walked around, and he walked like a raped ape. I mean, the guy never stopped moving. I told him I was nicknaming him Caribou because the only caribou I saw, they just went here and there and here and there, and they were just all over the place. I'm like, you're like a caribou. And, from a physical standpoint, I mean, he would see a point and be like, we're going there. I'm like, yeah, I pretty much figured that the highest point in the mountain, that's where you wanted to go. So from that aspect, it was way more physical than what I thought it was going to be. Now, maybe what we were doing, we there were several times when we climbed, 3,000, almost 3,000 foot of vertical elevation just to get up to the top where we were going. And, full camp and pack, and it was rough on me. I'll be honest. I'm not as tough as you young bucks.
I don't know about that. But
yeah,
what about? Yeah, exactly. We'll talk to you after this. What about your camp? Pretty satisfied with your tent and all the things you took for camp? And how did it fare during the weather? You said you got some wind and rain and lightning and everything else. Yeah.
So I used the Kuiu Mountain Star 2-person tent. In my opinion, it's perfect. I'm 6'2", like they say, Fletchy's like 6'6" with the afro. I'm 6'2", on a great day, I'm 6'3" when I'm feeling good. And the Kuiu Mountain Star 2-person was perfect for me. I can't imagine sharing that tent with someone else. Maybe I could do it for a night, but definitely not on a 10-day hunt. The tent performed fantastic. I also used it last year on that mountain goat hunt. We had rain, we had snow, we had sleet, we had high winds. It performed very, very well. I was able to put my backpack every night under my vestibule. I was able to put my rifle under my vestibule. They recommend that you sleep pretty dang close to your rifle. We did not see any grizzly tracks. We did not see any grizzly bears. So I will say that, you guys will probably go and see 40, but we didn't see any. We didn't have any trouble with that at all.
Did you use a footprint on your tent?
I did not use a footprint. But the whole time, every single day that I put up the tent, I was cringing because I'm thinking, most of the time it was kind of in, the grass and in the lichen, but I'm like, all I got to do is pop this Neo Air mattress one time, and I'm sleeping on the frickin', bare ground and, freeze my balls off. And I would if I was going to do it again, I would probably take the footprint. I mean, the footprint weighs literally nothing. And I just feel like it gives you just a little bit added protection to protect your air mattress. And what I would do when I would set my tent, I'd kind of usually get in there first and kind of pad down and feel if I felt any, sharp little pieces of grass or something. I was always concerned about popping my Neo Air, which I like that air mattress. I took the 30-degree bag. On the morning that it snowed, I definitely had to wake up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, wow, it's cold outside. I put on my Super Down pants and my Super Down Pro jacket, and I every night, I'm bald headed, so I wore my beanie every night. And the sleeping bag, the air mattress, and the tent performed great.
Cool. Good. What about satellite device? Did your guy take a phone? Did you take an inReach? What did you take there?
Yeah, hang on just a second. Sorry, I had to blow my nose. So I took my Globalstar satellite phone. I charged it. It was full charge when I went. I used the phone pretty much every day just to check in with my wife. I did not need an extra battery. I was probably on it maybe 2 minutes per day, and honestly, by the end of the hunt, it still had half a battery left. I took a friend of mine, Russ Jacoby, let me borrow his Garmin inReach. I absolutely loved the Garmin inReach. It was my first encounter with the Garmin inReach. I got the EarthMate app on my iPhone, and I highly recommend that. Inside my tent, my sat phone would work for one, but my Garmin inReach would work inside my tent. And it was nice to be able to text on my phone, so normal text capabilities, and it obviously would work through the Garmin inReach. And I can tell you that communicating with Dar and several of my other buddies and my wife and what have you, the Garmin inReach was awesome. I would highly recommend it to anybody. The first time I've ever used it, and it performed. It was better than I expected. I also took the Nomad 7 solar panel, and I took a Dark Energy Poseidon. So I would try, anytime I would be leaving my camp for the day and it looked like there would be some sun, I would put my charger out, or my Poseidon and the solar panel, and try and always keep that Poseidon charged. I never saw my inReach go below 90%. I would every night just top it off. I feel pretty confident that I probably could have gone the whole hunt with the Garmin inReach and never used 100% of the battery if I'd never topped it off. And let's see. Yeah, so Poseidon, Nomad 7 solar panel, the Globalstar sat phone, and the Garmin inReach.
And you use your phone for everything.
The app on the phone was awesome. That EarthMate app is awesome because you can get weather reports on it. hour-by-hour weather reports, and you can send out text. And the thing I like is you can send out text and get pretty immediate response. And by being able to use your phone, I felt comfortable. I feel like the Garmin InReach, trying to text actually on the device is a little cumbersome. Highly recommend the app. It's free, and you can use your phone and text just like like we're all normally used to.
Right. Okay. And did you have an iPhone X or an iPhone 10?
Well, it's the same thing, and I was always like, what's the X? Well, obviously X is in Roman numeral is 10, so it's the same thing. It's the iPhone X. It's iPhone X or iPhone 10, same thing. I just got it about 2 weeks before the hunt started, and I really like the phone. I didn't use any apps for photos or anything like that. As far as all the photos you saw on Instagram are just me pointing and shooting and clicking and taking photos. All my videos were done on the phone. I did use the phone scope adapter on the iPhone X. One thing that you need to know if you have an iPhone X is the phone scope, because it has two lenses, that new adapter actually slides up and down, and there's two apps. There's the phone scope app that you can switch from lens to lens, and then there's an app called a ProCam app, and that's the one I used the most when I was digiscoping, phone scoping stuff. And you definitely need that app in order to switch from lens to lens when you're phone scoping.
Gotcha.
And the battery, you use your phone for everything, right? Photos and videos and even your audio and whatnot, and you had plenty of battery.
Well, because I always kept my Poseidon charged, every night I would top my my phone off. I feel like on airplane mode I could go. I never tested it because I never wanted to get to real low on the battery, but I felt like I could probably go 3 days at a time, taking all the photos, doing all the stuff that I was doing on one cycle of battery, if that makes sense.
Yep, for sure.
But I feel like having, and I got no affiliation like Poseidon, Dark Energy. I mean, there's several of those battery bankers or whatever they call them out there. I just feel like having that always full or close to full. You can top your phone off, you can top your InReach off. I just felt like that was the way to go.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of one dilemma for us, is whether or not to take a solar panel with the time of year we're going, how much, with the extra weight, how much sunlight we might actually see, if it'll benefit us, or just take the bank's already charged and maybe have one drop to us mid-hunt or something instead of taking a solar panel. So I know that's a big one for us right now, how we're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a ton of weight. The panel's not a ton of weight, but every ounce matters. So, I mean, it's like, man, you carry 3, chargers already charged, or do you just take one each and you take a solar panel? If you get any sunshine at all, those things charge pretty dang good. That was one thing that Nomad 7, I've used it a bunch, and it actually does really good. You can actually clip it on your pack, when you're hiking. When you're glassing, you can leave it on your tent, so when you get back, it's all charged. I mean, there's a lot of options there.
Okay. What about binos? Now, going back, what did you end up taking on your trip?
Yeah, so I took my 10x42 ELs, my Swarovskis, and I felt that they were more than adequate. I did take a little lightweight slick tripod with a Outdoorsman's micro panhead, panhead, and I used that. I did glass off of that as well. I used the Outdoorsman's Bino stud, but Al, my guide, he would just use his tripod when he found something he wanted to look at in the spotting scope, and I got to where I was probably pretty much just hand-holding my tins off my knees and doing a lot of, because you can see them. They don't hide very well. I mean, they're laying out there in the green grass, or, you know, they definitely were easy to see. You know, I don't feel like you have to take a tripod to glass off of. I feel like, you know, obviously taking a tripod to use your spotting scope. I also took my my STX 65 millimeter objective with the 30 to 70 eyepiece, and I felt that was plenty for what I was doing.
Going back, would you stick with 10 power or maybe move down to 8 and save? I don't know if there's any weight savings, but would that be an option?
I like those 10s. I think they're a perfect binocular. I would probably just go with my 10s for sure. I think 10's perfect. It's just enough magnification, and it's got a wide enough field of view. I probably would not go with 8s at all. I would probably stick with 10s.
Okay. Any other gear stuff, Kevin?
I mean, if we want to move to like clothing and see what you took and what you might change up on that.
Yeah, so the clothing, I took the Chugach rain gear, pant and jacket, which I thought was great. I like the fact that, you know, it's got the zips down the side, so you could wear the rain pants, you know, but you could still vent. I also wore the Tiburon pant, and we had quite a few sunny days, or, you know, not rainy and, you know, mixed clouds, the sun. The Tiburon pants I thought were great for my hunt. They might not be great for yours because it's probably going to be quite a bit cooler. I would say we had probably temperatures in around freezing a couple of mornings. Most of the temps were probably in the high 30s to low 40s first thing, you know, when you get out of your tent. I felt like the Tiburon for my hunt was a perfect pant. You know, I like the air dot technology where on those hot days it would breathe, but you could also use the side vents. I think on the Chugach hunt, I might just be going with straight rain gear, because from what I understand, it rains freaking every day up there. So I might not actually even wear a pant. I know Jonas Stewart, I know Lance, they don't even wear pants. They go straight rain gear, and they'll either wear their zip-off KUIU long underwear and then wear your Super Down Pro or Super Down pant, you know, if it got cold. You know, I think you guys should probably be looking at like that. You know, I think it's going to be quite a bit colder when you guys go, so I'd consider the guide pant, or I would consider maybe one of those new pants. I think it's the Talus.
Have you tried either of those, the Talus or the Pro?
I have not tried either the Talus or the Pro. I have not tried either. The other pant you might consider is that Alpine pant. But I think the Tiburon's going to be too light. I think you're going to get quite a bit more colder temperatures than what I saw. Now, I did take a, back to the KUIU long underwear. In my opinion, those zip all the way down the leg, where you don't have to take your pants off, and you can put those long underwear on and off. Those things are money. Whether you go with the Peloton or whether you go with the merino wool, that's your decision. On this Chugach hunt, I think I'm going with the Peloton 200 zip off, but I love that because several nights I slept in my sleeping bag. I would just put those zip off long underwear on. So I'm a big proponent of those. I did take 2 shirts. I ended up taking a 125 merino short sleeve, and then my go-to always is a 145 KUIU, ultra merino 145 zip tee. And on that first hunt again, I might just take the one shirt. I might not even take that second shirt. I got a funny story. On day 5 that night, 3 o'clock in the morning, I got sicker than a dog, puking, and I had stuff going out every orifice I had. I was puking out my nose, puking out my mouth, and blowing it out my butt at the same time. So picture me in the two-person. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with that feeling in your stomach like, oh, just lay still. Maybe it'll go away. And then I'm laying there going, oh, no. And by the way, it's raining straight down, pouring freaking rain, like water running under the tent rain. I'm like, oh, boy. Do I have to puke or oh, boy, I have to do both. So picture this. I'm like, well, do I go out, do I go out freaking naked, do everything that I need to do, blowing and going out there, get totally soaked, and then try and get back in the tent totally soaked, or do I go full rain gear, try and go outside in the freaking downpour? So I got the brilliant idea that I was going to unzip the side of the tent.
Guys, I'm excited about one of the new sponsors of the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Canyon Coolers is based right here in Arizona and makes premium roto-molded ice chests that work. The Outfitter Series coolers are made with near vertical exterior walls to fit snugly into tightly packed hunting rigs without a lot of wasted space. They come at a fraction of the cost of some of the big name brands. Canyon Coolers is a small operation. If you have a question, if you have a problem, you can pick up the phone and talk to a human being, not an answering service. Canyon Coolers offers the industry's only Vortex-like warranty, which is completely no fault, no hassle warranty for as long as you own the cooler. How can you beat that? It's literally the last ice chest you'll ever need to buy. Just for the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners, you save 10%. All you got to do is go to canyoncoolers.com and enter the J. Scott promo code at checkout, and you're going to get a 10% discount.
And I'm realizing now, guys, that, and I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I hope it never does, it's going to come out at the same time. Both, it's coming. So I'm hanging my butt out the vestibule. My feet are inside the tent. I'm shaking my Kuiu dry bags trying to get stuff out of it because I know I'm going to have to be puking into that. So my butt's hanging out the tent. My head, I'm kind of tall, so my head's getting pounded by rain inside the tent, but it's like touching at the top. My butt's hanging out, and I'm like, oh boy, do not crap in your tent. And then I'm puking in a Kuiu dry bag over my sleeping bag, and I'm like, do not miss the dry bag because you're going to be sleeping in puke. Meanwhile, it's going out the other end. I'm going, keep your butt out. Don't freaking dangle it in the tent. It was a freaking nightmare.
That sounds brutal.
I'm puking. I'm puking and puking and puking, and it's coming out my nose. Have you ever puked out your nose? I've never puked out my nose, and it was coming out my mouth and my nose.
Well,
I had chunks coming, and so here's where the extra short sleeve shirt comes in. I'm like, I remember I got an extra shirt, so I'm reaching around. I grab that shirt and I start wiping my nose and wiping my mouth, and then I start puking again, and I realize, oh crap, this Kuiu dry bag is almost full. Now I'm still blowing it out my rear end. I've almost filled up the Kuiu dry bag, so I'm roll topping it, like trying to roll top it, and I'm grabbing another Kuiu dry bag to puke in. Oh my heavens! It was a night to remember. Yeah, it was a multi-use bag. So then picture this, and I can't believe I'm even saying this on the air. So I get myself cleaned up, cleaning every end I've got. And I realize, you're an idiot. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You're going to be in your tent till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. You have to sleep right next to what you just did outside the tent. Like the Kuiu dry bags are one thing that you can throw outside the tent. So yeah, I slept for 3 or 4 hours next to. Yeah. It was horrible, guys.
Is it something you ate or just a bug?
Okay.
Or what do you think?
Yeah. So here we go on this. Here's my theory. I got the 5-day food drop. They dropped a cherry pie. They dropped cookies. They dropped a frickin' loaf of bread. They dropped all these little goodies and treats. So we get back. We race back that afternoon because we're like, oh, yeah, the drop's there. And we were like two bears just going at this stuff. So I'm eating cherry pie. I'm eating cookies. I'm eating everything under the sun. Then I'm like, oh, I'm going to have my mountain house. I have my chicken fajita bowl. I freaking puked the cherry pie, the chicken fajita bowl, the everything. I filled up a whole Kuyu medium dry or size small dry bag, but I mean it's a pretty big bag. Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
The moral of the story is half a piece of pie and maybe one cookie, but don't freaking overdo it, boys.
Don't eat everything.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you didn't have to eat. You didn't have to eat the whole pie in one sitting. And I was like, yeah, I guess yeah.
So I mean, with that, me and Chase have been talking because me and Brittany have kind of been working on our diet and whatnot, and try not to cut out everything that I might have. So in theory, if your body goes from eating the stuff you're going to have on the hunt in decent proportions to boom, all of a sudden it's jam-packed. That's, kind of heads up on and watch that.
I would just tell you on the food drop, there's no reason to eat all that stuff. I just did it because it was like, this tastes great. But looking back, I should have been more disciplined and been like, hey, you don't eat this stuff at home. Like, I don't eat that stuff. Like, if I was left to my own devices, I'd weigh 600 pounds. But my wife cooks good for me. I eat good meals, and I just don't eat that crap. And it tasted phenomenal, but that's the last thing, like, I needed to do. And I think my body just went, time out. No, we're not doing that. But I'll tell you, I paid the price because I woke up at 7 o'clock. I tried to drink some water, and I dry heaved the water up. So I ended up not really eating or drinking anything for about 12 hours, and it frickin' ruined me. We had to climb 2,850 feet that day, and it was probably the hardest hike I've ever done because I had nothing in my system. I had puked and blow out the back end, everything. I had nothing. And so I would tell you on those food drops, like, I wouldn't eat, I might even tell them, like, drop our mountain house and drop our stuff and maybe a cookie or something, but don't go crazy, because I think my body just revolted and said, hey, you don't eat this at home. You certainly haven't eaten in the last 5 days. What the heck are you doing?
Right.
Gotcha. Well, that kind of covers the gear and
that wraps it up there.
after that, we'll take an extra dry bag.
Yeah, exactly. Now I will tell you, those dry bags, I was able to go to the creeks. I was able to wash them out, and you wouldn't even tell that happened. And I feel sorry for if someone happens to go in that valley that I was in. But the other part of it was like, the other thing I can tell you guys is there's a thing called dude wipes. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're wet wipes, and they're in these little packets, and they're called dude wipes. My wife got them for me, and they were phenomenal because they would, I'd be able to take a couple of them a day, and they weigh nothing, but they're in their own individual little packet, and they're unscented. Like most wet wipes and stuff have a strong scent. These are unscented, and they're called dude wipes, and she orders them for me, and they were phenomenal on the hunt. Highly recommend them.
Cool. Okay. Mark that down. So, sheep, and whatever else you saw, how was it? How many animals, how many sheep did you see?
So we saw 19 rams. But the thing was, 19 kind of sounds like a lot, but we saw them basically, I want to say, in 4 groups. We saw a group of 6, 2 groups of 4. So what is that, 8, 14, and then we saw a group of 2 and a group of 3. So there were several days where we didn't even see a sheep. I did not see any ram on the hunt that I was like, oh, I want to shoot that. We did not see any 10-year-old rams. We saw a 9-year-old, 2 8-year-olds, and a couple 7-year-olds. But it's not like I saw an 8 or a 9-year-old that was like big, flaring, giant ram that I was like, oh, I really want to shoot that. Darn it, I can't believe it. It's too bad it's not 10 years old. the moral of or the general gist of the story was I never saw anything that I wanted to shoot. And I never saw a ram. You know, they like you to shoot 10-year-old rams. I never saw a 10-year-old ram. Now, I will tell you, we went in an area that Al said nobody had been in since 2005. He was the last person to go in this area. So it had been 13 years since anybody had even been in there, and it was Al. A few days in, Al said to me, Jay, there's not the sheep here like I thought there were. He said, here's our options. We can go, we're 13 and a half miles, air miles from the strip where we were dropped off. We can go back down that valley, go back to the strip, potentially get relocated. It's going to take us a couple days to get there. Or we have another strip that's 15 miles away. We can hunt through some other country and said potentially, you know, have a chance and see some rams. So that's what we did. We covered just over 65 miles on foot. And what I would tell you is we could have came around a hill and there'd be 5 rams laying there that are, you know, 11, 12, 13-year-old ram, couple giants, but it didn't happen. So do I regret going where I went? It's easy for me to say, yeah, because I didn't see a shooter. But on the same token, no one had been in there. Like, you know, I could have seen a 13-year-old ram on the first day that was a giant, and, you know, the story I'd be telling is, oh, you know, it was unbelievable. I think that's the nature of hunting, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, and that's the hand I was dealt, and we hunted hard, and I had a phenomenal hunt. I really wouldn't trade anything other than I would have liked to have seen and digiscoped and just had the chance to be like, oh, I'm going to pass that, or man, should I shoot that? Or put, you know, I never was in that dilemma of like, oh, should I shoot it? I never saw anything that I was just like, oh my gosh, I want that ram.
Okay, guys, I want to tell you about one of the new sponsors at the J. Scott Outdoors podcast, and I'm excited to tell you about this awesome team of dynamic realtors that I know very well. Dar Colburn, who has been my hunting and guiding partner for over 20 years, has partnered up with my nephew, Jay Pyburn, to create the Colburn-Pyburn team. If you're looking to buy or sell any real estate in the state of Arizona, you can't go wrong with the Colburn-Pyburn team. Dar and I have been in the real estate business for over 20 years together, and my nephew Jay is an up-and-coming realtor that has many sales under his belt and is a phenomenal resource for any person looking to buy or sell real estate in the state of Arizona. Just for the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners, if you have any real estate needs at all, if you use the Colburn-Pyburn team, you're going to get a $500 gift certificate from any retail shop of your liking. Kuyu, Outdoorsman's, Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, Amazon, you name it. $500 if you use the Colburn-Pyburn team and they sell one of your properties that you either buy or sell, you get a $500 gift certificate. All you got to do is send an email to colburnpyburnteam@gmail.com and get your real estate needs taken care of. That's COLBURNPYBURN team, colburnpyburnteam@gmail.com.
So,
right. Gotcha.
But that's unlikely for, you know, that's not the norm for Arctic Red. I mean, they harvest 10-year-old rams a lot.
Right.
So, you know, it's just the way it happened to me, and it's not the end of the world. And, you know, I can go back and, you know, I've got this hunt on the Chugach, so it's, you know, if I was one of these guys, it was my one time to go Dall sheep hunting, and like I had to go home with one. You know, like I never saw a mature, you know, a ram. You know, they like 10-year-old rams. I never saw one.
Right.
And the 9-year-old I saw was just okay and wasn't that impressive. So it wasn't like, oh, this 9-year-old's a stud. Like, can I shoot him? It was not like that.
Right.
And me and Chase think a lot alike. And in hearing something like that with that option of, hey, no one's been in here since 2005, that just throws up a flag of, man, I want to check it out if no one's been in here for that long. So
right. I mean, and so that's my point. It's like it could have. The tide could have changed, and we could have come around a corner, and boom, here's our ram, and it's just like, oh, that was awesome.
Right.
You know, one of the things with Arctic Red is they're a classic traditional backpack, like They don't scout. Like, there's no helicopters. Like, it's just they put you and you go.
Right.
So that's awesome. The only downside is you could have what I had happen, and you don't see a shooter. But that's hunting. Like, I mean, I'm not crying. It is what it is. And I'm not saying we saw everything. I feel like we combed it very, very well and we covered it. But I do not want to sit here and say, oh, we saw every ram. Like, they could be around a corner. Like, I mean, we did the best we could, and we didn't see a shooter, and that's the way it goes.
Right.
My guide was awesome. The staff was awesome. Everything about the whole hunt was awesome. It was an incredible experience. I've got no regret.
Yeah. So when you glass out over those huge mountain ranges and bottoms and whatnot, is there country that you can find sheep and it might take you days to get to? Or...
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely big country. Like, you could look, across a valley and be like, well, there's some rams, and it's going to take me a full day to even get over to them. So, yeah, that's absolutely likely and absolutely something you might run into. It's big country. It's not hard to glass. You typically, you sit and look and keep moving and dodging and weaving. You're going to pretty much see what's there. Now, I'll tell you, on the mountain caribou, I was a little disappointed. I really wanted to see a bull. It wasn't open. I couldn't hunt them, but I really wanted to see a bull mountain caribou, and I never did. We saw, in one group, the only caribou we saw like, I think Al counted 58 cows and calves. They were really cool, and they just kind of ran around willy-nilly. Like, they'd run over to one snow patch and kind of stand around, and then they'd run over to another snow patch, and it seemed like they had no rhyme or reason. But I didn't see any bulls, and I would have loved to just seen a bull, But I don't know that we were. I don't know that we were like in caribou country necessarily.
Okay.
So, we were up in the mountains a lot, up high, and they say the bulls and they say the caribou sometimes are higher than the sheep, but I don't know Arctic red. I don't know if we were in a good caribou area or if we weren't even in an area where caribou typically are. We just didn't see any bulls.
Did Al seem surprised not seeing any caribou or moose or even bears?
Al seemed surprised that the lack of game that we saw total. He was surprised we didn't see a bear. He was surprised we not a moose. Where we were, I don't think there's any moose, but he was surprised we did not see bears. He was surprised we did not see caribou. He was surprised we did not see more sheep.
Gotcha. Well, what else you got?
Did Al, when you guys are sitting there looking at rams and stuff, did he give you any tips or tricks or anything he uses as far as judging age? And because I want to be able to sit there, and have conversations with whoever we're with and kind of go back and forth with them instead of just turning to them and relying on them. Did he give you anything to look at as far as judging them or anything that
Yeah,
helps?
I mean, I would say there's really no difference in counting rings like there is on bighorns. I was able to count, Al was like, he's 8. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I was thinking he was 7 or 8. I feel like there was never a time where I was like, how old is that? I felt like I was, fair. I was obviously always deferring to him, but I felt like I was always in the ballpark. So if you have experience counting rings before on bighorns, you should have no problem with Dalls. Now, I would tell you, I study body characteristics on everything I hunt. I'm typically always looking for, how is the body size compared to that ram? Are those two rams? Well, one body's way bigger. Look at the shoulders. Look at the neck. Look at the pot belly. What I would tell you is we didn't see enough mature rams where I really got a chance to be like, oh, that's an 11. Oh, that's a 10. Oh, look at how, he's a 10, but he's got a small body. So, I don't want to come across like, oh, I saw 19 rams, so I'm some expert. I'm not. I didn't see enough sheep, I don't think, to like really hone and give you like good details of, this is what I would look for. What I can tell you is, obviously you look at base size, you look at rams that, drop down below their jaw, you look at rams that, then flare up, you're looking at length of horn. The rings, in my opinion, are way easier to count on Dall than they are on desert or Rocky Mountain bighorn. That was just my impression, is that you can see the rings a lot easier. What I would tell you, Kevin, is look at body size. I will say that the 9-year-old ram that we did see, he did have a much bigger body than anything else that we did see. He was barrel-chested. He had, pot belly. He had, seemed like, his neck was bigger. So body size is everything. And if you could get 5 or 6 rams together, and they're bedded and they're feeding and they're bedded and they're feeding and they're up and they're standing, like compare, like that one's horns look the biggest, but when he stands up, the other one is bigger bodied. Like those are things that I would be looking at. And then if you see one that's like, man, his horns look bigger and wow, his body's bigger than anything else, that would be one, if he's 10 years old and something you want to shoot, that would be one that I would say, okay, he's got a big body, he's bigger than any of the other rams, and, I can count that he's got, 10 rings or whatever, or 9 rings, whatever you're looking for. And, a big ram, in my opinion, is going to look big.
Right. Okay.
I know we
to answer your
to...
question, yes, the guide will. Al was very, very open to discussing, how many rings do you see? How old do you think he is? Like body size. Can you see that they're, those 2 rams, they have the same identical body. One has bigger horns, but they're both like 6-year-old rams. They're skinny faced. They're, not blocky shoulders. Like they don't have the pot belly. All those things. So the guys at Arctic Red are awesome. So I think you'll have a great time being able to, pick those things apart. But I will tell you, it didn't seem any different than my experience with bighorns, that like big rams look big, little rams look little. Like if you have to go, well, then he's probably not that big. If you look at him at every angle and he just looks giant, he's probably a good one.
Okay.
How many hunters at Arctic Red end up taking sheep with a bow? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm just going to tell you my honest opinion. In my honest opinion, if you're going to Arctic Red with a bow to kill a Dall sheep, I would pat you on the head and say, good frickin' luck. I'm just telling you that. I'm just telling you that, like, good frickin' luck.
Yeah, I know
the country they live in. Like, I'm not saying you couldn't sneak up on one, and I'm not saying that the right circumstance that, boom, it works out. I'm just telling you, guys that bow hunt Dall sheep, good luck.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know Brian, we talked to him about it on that previous podcast, and he ended up shooting with a rifle, but, I didn't know if you'd talked to them and if there were a decent number of guys that try it with a bow, or if it's mostly just rifle hunting.
I think the guys that just bring a bow have a much better chance of killing one with a bow. I think most of the guys, from what I understood, that bring a bow and bring a rifle, most all of them end up shooting one with a rifle. So okay. That's just my impression, and I would tell anyone that's going to go bow hunt a sheep, don't even take a rifle. If you want to kill one with a bow, you can't take a rifle, because you will always resort to the rifle. That's not saying you can't just happen to have it and you shoot one and I shot it with a bow. But like if you're serious about killing one with a bow, in my opinion, mentally you have to go in like the only thing I have to kill this thing with is this bow. Like I am all in. I got to go do this with a bow. If you take a rifle, I'm betting 90% of the time, people are going to resort to the rifle. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying from a guide's perspective too. I'm an outfitter. I'm a guide. Like, hey man, if you want to kill them with the bow, like, you got to go all in with the bow. If you're bringing the rifle after day 3 or 4, and what have you done? You've basically wasted time. You guys are hunting together, and one of you's trying to go 4 or 5 days with a bow. You're basically killing the other guys. I don't know if you're hunting together. I don't know what your situation is, but I'm just telling you, for your first time, and Chase, you've killed, Kevin, you haven't killed at all, right? But Chase, you have.
Right.
Right. I mean, I don't know what you guys want to do, but I'm just telling you, if you're going to try and get one with a bow, I think you got to just take a bow.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I want to make it clear, like, I'm not against archery hunters. I'm just, from a time perspective, like, you only have so much time. Like my buddy Travis and Brad Weiss, they went with the bow, and they hunted 21 days. They never even got the caribou hunt. They never even got the moose hunt because they were trying to kill one with the bow. It is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Gotcha. Now, you were a decent ways away from an airstrip, while you were sheep hunting. Kevin and I are doing a combo hunt. We'll have a caribou tag with us. Could you foresee, like, halfway through that trip shooting a caribou and spending the time getting it back to an airstrip and then continuing sheep hunting? I mean, how do you see that going down?
If I was in the middle of where we were, heck no, I wouldn't have shot a caribou if it was a freaking world record. I just don't see how you shoot a 700-pound animal and have 10 to 15 miles to an airstrip. Like, that was one thing I thought, and keep in mind, I'm a rookie. Like, I've been one time. I don't want to come across like I know everything, because I don't. Maybe where you're going to be sheep hunting and caribou hunting, maybe they have more airstrips. But I thought there would be, you got a caribou down, we can fly right in there. Like, but my impression is, like, no, we have established airstrips, and, like, you have to pack that to that airstrip. Well, I was 13.5 miles. 2 days in, I'm 13.5 miles from the strip they dropped me off at, and the next closest strip is 12 or 15 miles away the other way. Like, there ain't no way I want to kill a Dall sheep. And you're telling me that I'm going to kill a bull caribou, and it's going to take me, 2-3 days to get it to the strip, and then I'm going to have to come back and Dall sheep? Like, I don't know how it works. Like, I think the bull caribou thing is, like, if you happen to see one close to the strip that you get dropped off at, or the strip that you're getting picked up at, or if you're hunting in a big drainage area where there's like 4 or 5 strips as you go, you'll have to talk to your guide. But where I went, I mean, after the first mile, 8.5, 9 miles from the first strip, there ain't no way I'm shooting a caribou and walking it all the way back from the strip. That's just my, that's just my mental,
Yeah.
No freaking way. Especially because we were going up over mountain passes, down into the next valley, up over mountain passes, down into the next valley. Maybe if you're, working some of those long valleys, basically using one main drainage, and you're kind of, moving camp every couple of days, and then you're going up the side drainages, and there's airstrips along the way, maybe so, but one of the things I thought is I would want to go back and just hunt caribou, or I would want to go back and just hunt Dall sheep. Now, that's not to say you can't have a caribou tag, and if it's just like Brian Remza, first morning he wakes up and they're, mile from the airstrip, and there's a bull caribou standing at 60 yards. Well, yeah, I mean, you carry it in, 2 hours, you got everything at the airstrip, and you're back. Like, I can understand that. But, I mean, we made a big push the first day away from the airstrip, and there's no freaking way I would shoot a caribou where we went after the first day.
Right. Gotcha.
But, I mean, you guys could very well be 10 times tougher than I am, too. Like, I'm not carrying 700 pounds. I'm not carrying, 8 or 9 miles back to an airstrip and then coming back to hunt Dall sheep. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm just being honest.
Yeah, you're burning a lot more calories at that point. That's for sure.
Well, and I don't want to come across as I'm being discouraging. I'm just telling you my opinion. Like, there was no way. I wouldn't. There's no way. There's no way I would have done it.
Just focus on the sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, what were some of the better pieces of gear, or what were some of the things you took that were just awesome? You wouldn't change?
I really liked my boots. I really like those KUIU boots. I really like the Super Down Pro jacket. I feel like there's added, insulation. It's a warmer jacket than the Super Down Ultra. I really like that Super Down Pro. What I found is when you would hike up for 3 or 4 hours and get to a ridge line and you get to the top and the wind's now blowing in your face, or maybe it's like, raining a little bit, all of a sudden you go from being hot to being cold. And I felt like with that Super Down Pro, I could, grin and bear most situations, put the Super Down Pro on and then put the Chugach rain jacket over the top, and I was pretty comfortable even when it got cold and windy. I really like that Super Down Pro jacket. Let's see. I took the Icon Pro 7200 and I liked it. I actually just got in the mail the Ultra 7000, and I'm kind of going to play with it a little bit, and I may take that on the Chugach just to save just a little bit of weight. It doesn't have as many pockets, but that Icon Pro, I just like that pack. It's the one I always use, for all my other hunts, so I'm pretty familiar with it. KUIU beanie. I wore that to bed every night, and I wore that, when I would get up to a ridgeline, I would always put my beanie on. I also wear the merino wool face mask, more to keep the sun off me. You guys won't have it, but the bugs were horrible. I would tell people on that early hunt to take a head net. That head net was a savior. It made, sitting around camp, it made hiking, it made sitting glassing a lot more enjoyable because the bugs were horrible. I mean, I'd never seen anything like that for mosquitoes. Guys that are probably used to going to the Yukon or NWT are laughing right now because they're like, that's what it's always like. But I'd never seen bugs like that.
Yeah, I've only been on one hunt where we had a lot of bugs, and that was my moose hunt in 2014, and they're no joke. I don't know if did they have the little flies there, the little white flies too, or was it mostly mosquitoes?
No, they had mosquitoes, and then they had these little black flies, but nothing compared to the mosquitoes in my mind. I've had those black flies in New Zealand, and they can be nasty. But the mosquitoes, I don't think you guys will have any mosquitoes, because on our last day out, it was actually a real cold morning, and I felt like it killed a bunch of those mosquitoes. I don't think you'll have any.
Okay. Well, any advice for us other than what was covered so far?
The only advice I would give you is you guys are going to do great. You're going to have a super fun time. I wouldn't put a lot of pressure on yourself, to shoot this, that, and the other, and I would just let it happen. You guys are going to be prepared. You're already in great shape. You guys have got great gear. I would just enjoy every second of it. It's going to be a grind at times. Physically, mentally, it's going to be a grind, and I think you just embrace that. You could possibly go a day or two and not see any rams, not see any sheep, not see any caribou. Like, you got to know that potentially just around the next corner, your whole hunt can change. And, you guys are veterans. I don't need to tell you this, but I'm also talking to other people out there who are listening. Like, in lots of other hunts, you can go from hero to zero or zero to hero like that. And so, just keep plug in and, enjoy everything about it. There's going to be things in the hunt that go sideways, puking and, crapping out the tent and doing all that. And it's horrible when you're going through it, but when it's all said and done, it's a funny story. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
I felt like I felt like I wanted to call a helicopter and say, "Come get me now!" I'm dying. And now I tell a story about hanging my butt cheeks out the out the tent, So at the time it may be horrible, but you guys are going to have a ball. It's an incredible place. Tavis and his crew are phenomenal. Tavis's wife's there. She's awesome. She's cooking and doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, I would just enjoy every aspect of it, and you guys are going to do great. And I've already gotten some in-reach messages from some of the other hunters that are there now, and they've already killed some rams, some 10, 11-year-old rams. So, my experience with not seeing a lot of sheep, and I think I was just in one particular area. I think, the other 3 rams that were killed when I was there, I would have shot any of the 3 of them and been tickled pink. So it could have very easily been me, and that's the way it goes. And I hope you guys, I wish you guys the best of success, and hope hope I was able to answer some of your questions. Feel free if anything else comes up, as well as anybody listening, if you have any additional questions, feel free to call or email or send a message through Instagram. And and one more thing, I would, you guys are awesome photographers and stuff, but take more photos and more videos than what you think you should. I mean, just constantly be recording and constantly be snapping shots, and it's nice to look back and see all the stuff. It's so easy to be like, yeah, things aren't going well right now. I don't even want to shoot photos. I would shoot more photos,
Yeah. Right. When do you leave for your next hunt, Jay?
I leave on the 18th of August. I think the hunt starts on the 23rd. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going to go a little bit early, get a chance to do a little bit of scouting and what have you. And, we'll see if I'm going to die in the Chugach or not.
You should do a podcast with Pete Munich from Stone Glacier. He had a Chugach tag last year. And,
I know, and he shot just a beautiful ram. A beautiful ram. I actually know Joe, our mountain goat guide last year, actually left us and flew over there and went with Pete on that hunt. And I texted him the other night and I said, hey, just tell me, is the Devil's Club and alders going to be as bad as what we saw on our mountain goat hunt? He says, Jay, he goes, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that mountain goat hunt is, to this day, the worst brush beating I've ever seen in my entire life. He said, Chugach is bad, but it's not as bad as what you guys went through. So I was like, okay, at least we got that going for us.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah. So when do you guys leave?
We fly out the 24th.
24th of August. Okay.
Yeah, our hunt. What does our hunt start, Kevin? Is it 26th or
27th? 27th to September 13th.
Okay, so you'll definitely have colder weather. You definitely probably won't have any bugs. I would definitely take a rotation of socks, like I was saying. I would definitely take just a little smidge of laundry detergent. And there's probably old-time sheep guys listening to this going, you're such a sissy, but I'm just telling you I just think a little bit of clean clothes. If you do take an extra shirt, you can wash your other one and, get into a fresh shirt. I mean, sometimes that makes all the difference in the world, I think. Or potentially in your 5-day food bag or your 7-day, maybe have an extra shirt, or, maybe have some options set out, like if you in-reach them and say, can you grab the shirt that's next to the bag, or, have it pretty well organized where if you need something, they can throw it in and drop it to you.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Speaking of old school sheep guys, I saw in one of your pictures Al had a map out. Did you guys use a map or a GPS or both? Or
Yeah, no, that was one thing I wish I would have had was myself topo maps of that area, but it's such a big area. Like, I didn't want to be the guy like, where are we going? I want to, but that would be awesome if you could get the maps. But he had this he's got this old school topo map, and he's got a dot on there for every place where he's killed a ram, and he's got an X or whatever. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's switched around. But he basically has a mark for every caribou and every sheep that he's killed at Arctic Red on that map, and it was incredible. Of course, he would never let me like take a photo. Like, it always had to be kind of far away. He's like, this is like the holy grail of maps, but it was really neat to see because it's just littered. I mean, the guy has been there for 30 years or whatever. Like, it's just unbelievable, all the dots and all the markings on the map.
That's cool.
Yeah, the stories.
If you could figure out where you're going, I would definitely try and get whatever, topo map or whatever you could get to work. And you might check out that Motion X GPS. It worked a little bit for me, but I wasn't in the right area. So if you open it ahead of time and kind of zoom in, when you get there, it'll actually be a full-blown aerial, like a Google Earth aerial, and you'll be able to use that. But I wasn't in the right area, so it didn't open up for me.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's basically like 130 miles by 100 miles. So it's a huge area.
Yeah, that's massive.
So,
all right. Well, good
fellas,
stuff,
knock 'em dead, and I'll be leaving on the 18th. You guys will be leaving on the 24th. Like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out, and thanks for taking the time to be diligent, ask good questions, and hopefully other people are able to listen to this and get some value out of it. And it was just an experience of a lifetime. I wouldn't trade anything, and I look forward to going to the Chugach and trying it again. So.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Jay, well,
thanks for taking the time.
All right, guys, and I can't wait to see your film that you guys film on this hunt, and thanks for sending the T-shirt. It's awesome, and love what you guys do, so keep it up, okay?
All right, thanks, Jay. Talk to you soon.
Guys, take care. All right, bye.
Bye.
I want to thank theoutdoorsmans.com for their sponsorship of my podcast. I want to let you guys know they are the optics authority, and if you're looking for any binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, make sure to get a hold of the guys at the Outdoorsmans. If you use the JScott promo code, you get a 10% discount on all Outdoorsmans products. Go to outdoorsmans.com, or you can call them at 1-800-291-8065.